everybody. This is a Patreon exclusive video just for you about a subject that you've requested information on. And you've requested information on the Rilmani. So I'm going to basically do an overview of popular planar creatures. This is races that commonly are encountered around the planes of existence throughout Dungeons & Dragons history, including the Planescape setting and various others. Starting off with the Rilmani, they're quite interesting because they're neutral. Much like the Modrons are the living embodiment of the lawful alignment, and you could say that the Tanari are the living embodiment of evil and chaos. The Rilmani are the living embodiment of just plain neutrality. They appear as sort of luminescent, silvery skinned individuals. They're usually quite thin. Some of them are squat, and some of them are tall, but generally speaking, they're quite lean in their build. They share several spell-like powers that they can employ at will, such as continual light or darkness, the ability to dismiss, dismissal, hold monster, no alignment, which is always active, polymorph self, and teleport without error. And they're quite capable of gating their fellows to their location if they need to. They make their home in the spire of the concordant plane of the Outlands, which has it's kind of a central hub that connects most other planes of existence. And at the top of the spire, of course, is the City of Sigil, which is also known as the City of Doors. And it's within the spire that they typically make their home. And the spire takes the form of a just ridiculously steep mountain, which just rises up and up and up and up and up into almost limitless sky, with Sigil floating right at the very top of it, divorced from all reality and all laws. In fact, Sigil is so separated that even deities can't access it. They can't go in there. Their powers are blocked. The spire is neutral in that it bisects all planes, and it's a place that the Rilmani are able to access and travel to any place in the multiverse. So they travel to the outer planes or the astral plane freely. They can't enter the prime material plane unless a creature of similar status is summoned at the same time. In other words, if a powerful prime material mage summons Glabrizu Tanari, a window is opened in which a Rilmani can enter the same world to balance it out, to neutralize. This isn't always a trait which they're ready for, so typically they can't just drop whatever they're doing and go and investigate, but there's always a chance that a Rilmani will take interest and piggyback on the other creature's summoning just to keep an eye on what's going on. They can't be summoned directly, but this is a means in which they can enter the material plane. It's one reason why you don't generally detect the Rilmani, because you've typically got bigger problems. If an angel, for instance, has touched down in the prime material world and is doing something to correct natural law, the Rilmani may be an observer which has just appeared to see what's going on, or maybe in fact working against it to balance things out. And everybody will be so in awe or so in terror of this being of law or chaos which has appeared, the being of neutrality, which is basically just observing, goes unobserved. So the Rilmani are quite often not noticed. They are telepathic, and they make pretty good interpreters of everything going on. Most Rilmani inhabit the regions of the Outlands that are closest to the spires. They're found in the regions where most or all magic is negated, so their inherent abilities are non-magical in nature, but so they can polymorph and teleport and do things like that just at will. The home regions can't be accessed from the astral plane, which probably explains why nobody has really invented a spell for summoning them. They can't be found further away from the spire, typically, unless in the more heavily populated areas of the islands, but they're generally visitors there and don't stay very long. And yeah, once every 100 years or so, the wisest and most powerful individual of each type of the Rilmani travel to the spire in the centre of the Outlands to discuss the state of the balance of the entire multiverse. and each of the Rilmani views is represented. So there's a faction of a type of them called the Argonach delegate, and they argue for covert support of threatened causes, while the Krupelak and the Firbolg represent designated powerful creatures of extreme alignment who require elimination. However, since neutrality is the most apathetic and reactive of the planet alignments, the Concordamak initiates change only in response to the direst threats. So typically it would take a demon prince stepping forth in the material world to spur them into instant action. Otherwise, they'll pretty much just wait and see how things progress, and they'll correct imbalances as they occur. But when something like when the Nulls were created by Yenogu, so when Yenogu was walking in the material world, the Rilmani would have been heavily involved in getting him out of the prime material, because his very touch was destructive and highly, highly dangerous. So, yeah, the different factions of them are also sub-races. So the different factions, like the Firbolg, are the tall and broad, square-shouldered, ungracious, sooty grey-skinned, and kind of more militant and militaristic. And they're the closest to actually being lawful out of all of the Rilmani. But you've got to understand that these are neutral creatures, so they have an alien outlook to a prime material world person, in that they will change sides if things are swinging out of balance. So to them, it's not a matter of victory or defeat, it's a matter of non-interaction, non-reaction, no conflict whatsoever. So they're happiest when things are just peaceful and boring. So their entire existence is fairly boring. Yeah, that's pretty much them, really. They also have elemental affinities as well. So 3 times a day they can do things like dig, or flaming sphere, or gust of wind, or create water, that sort of thing. And they have a natural ability to restore flesh, so they can heal things back to the way they were. They can't enhance a person, they can't damage a person, they just restore them to balance. So they restore them back to their natural state. That also allows them to reconfigure people who have been mutated or altered by wishes and things like that, which is a highly potent ability, depending on how extreme the transformation of that person is. So sometimes the Rilmani have natural abilities which are highly valuable to people who are under extreme duress. Other planar races. So you have the Khaasta. Khaasta are a race of lizard-like creatures that trade with, steal from, and do dirty work for all manner of unsavory individuals across the plains. They have skin which is a hide of resplendent, small-scaled leather, small, durable, glinting, almost coal tar-like, opalescent, pearly, sort of rainbow-hued scales. They've got powerful tails, snubby, blunt lizard-like snouts, and small crest running the length of their head and back, kind of like dinosaur people. They're obsessed with progression by a convoluted set of social imperatives, and they normally are fairly untrustworthy and self-serving. But, as can be seen, their morals include the right to take from the weak, the need for ascension through outfighting and backstabbing your brethren, bringing down the strong, and doing anything to assert your dominance over others. They're not actually evil, that's just the way they survive, and they're simply individualistic and power hungry. They're not as chaotic as the Slard, but they have a similar sort of outlook of getting ahead any way they can. And they will victimize others who they see as weak. So it's best to present yourself as strong to the Khaasta. They are typically strong and hardy, but fairly clumsy. And they're not very charismatic. They are quite durable in their scales, but once you get underneath their skin, they're just as vulnerable as any other reptile. They've got large toothed maws, and have a fairly ferocious bite attack. And they're not very hindered by their bulky physique and tails, and they can clip along at regular sort of human pace. They favour fighter, cleric, and thief as their classic character classes. The Ratatosk are a humanoid race resembling giant squirrels, flying squirrels, that are native to the world ash of Yggdrasil, and they have a tiny membrane that runs between the arms and legs they use to glide, flattened as they steer themselves, falling through the air between the huge branches of Yggdrasil. They are black and grey, red or brown fur, much like earth squirrels. And the only clothing they wear is a harness for their gear and protective helmets, and typical sort of leather strapping, and a bit like lederhosen, I guess. Their language resembles clatters and chirps, and they're basically just sort of squirrel chipmunk people. They can speak to birds, and the common tongue, and the Arborean language. They're very curious and mischievous and get on fairly well with everybody, although they're not very reverent. They view the tree, though, as a female and in a particularly spiritual light, and they actually worship the world ash. And while they're playful, they will fight to the death to protect the tree. So they're very wary of fire, and they don't have technologies which rely on fire. Fire is ostracized. And anybody that damages the world tree, or any of the Ratatosk who leave the world tree, are ostracized and outcast by their brethren as outsiders, considered lost. And but many of them are actually overwhelmed by wanderlust and curiosity, so it's a constant war of social pressures. And some of them who are very curious about the outside world will latch onto an adventuring party as a new source of authority and join them like their own little clan, which may cause all sorts of problems. They have very sharp senses and +1 to initiative involving surprise attacks, and they have similar ground movement to humans, but of course they can fly as well. And of course they're very dexterous, but not very sturdy. The Reeve are an interesting race. They were originally from Archeron, which is a plane of constant warfare and battle, and they are one of the multiverse's more well-known and consummate mercenaries. They're just natural mercenaries, because they see absolutely nothing wrong with being brutal, but they always keep their word, and they have natural innate plane walking abilities, which make them the preferred crack aggressors for interplanar wars or subterfuge for those with a lack of scruples. Reeves are often hired as bodyguards as well, so you'll see a lot of them in Sigil, for instance. There are a few Reeves, however, who have lost their plane walking ability, and through chance or accidental curses or disability, and these select few are outcast from their own warbands, but they are still capable and quite adept warriors, and they ply their trade as solitary Reeves, and some of them end up being adventurers in their own right and getting quite a lot of wealth and renown, though just as many become notorious rogues, fencers, and criminals, because it's just in their nature. They are military orientated, though, and they're kind of like hobgoblins in a way. They have pebbly, leathery skin, like it's rough and bumpy, and they're very stocky, like their body is very big and wide, and their head is low down on it. They've got big hulking shoulders. They've got 4 arms, but their arms are quite short, as are their legs, kind of short and stumpy. So they've got a sort of an ogre build to them, with big, solid midsection and stuff, but they're very muscular and heavy. And despite their cumbersome sort of appearance, they are capable of devastating acts of violence, and they will spin those 4 arms around and cut somebody down pretty quickly. It's what they do. It's a natural inclination. Their leathery skin grants them a bonus natural armor class, and on top of that, this extra 2 arms can use shields, increasing its AC by 2. So yeah, they can get like a +4 if they use their shields with proficiency. So they can wield multiple weapons at once. They're ambidextrous, capable of wielding 2 weapons of equal size. And that in close combat or when they're mobbing you, for instance, is absolutely devastating. So you can imagine a mob which has got twice as many attacks as it normally would. So they can cut somebody down really quickly, particularly if you're a clever DM who uses mob rules to great effect. A pack of Reeves can quickly overcome an equal number of people. Yeah, so they're normally quite violent and war-loving, and it's strong in their alignment. So nearly all of the Reeves are lawful, but some of them are quite violent and merciless, and they've got a rough sort of sporty grunt culture. Which it's not really conducive to kindness, if you see what I mean. But they're not inherently evil. If it doesn't make sense to be brutal, then they won't be, because it's just a waste of time. Revoker, I think that's how you pronounce it. Also known as Ruvkova. They're a weird race. They look very humanoid, but they're elementally aligned. So they'll stay in areas of one or more pure elements. So they become adapted to earth or air or fire or water. Kind of like a genie kind. They're very mysterious. Nobody really knows where they came from or how they got there. They're all introverts. They very much stay to themselves, remain distant even from their closest friends. It's very hard to get on the good side. So much so that they have a hindrance in like a -2 charisma when dealing with anybody else other than their own kind, and even different other types of Revoker, they don't really get on at all. They, much like the genie sort of hybrids, they need to consume the element that they've aligned themselves to, that become native and adapted to. So they need to eat fire or earth or water. Quite a lot of it each day. Within their native plane, that's no problem, but if they're in the prime material plane, they have to eat fire and other sorts of things, so it's kind of weird. And they're fairly vulnerable once they're outside of their normal plane. But within their plane, they have a natural telepathy ability which allows them to communicate with almost any life form, which is actually highly valued for their translating abilities. But they're introverted and reclusive in the extreme, so it's hard to actually get hold of them. Formians are those ant people. They're humanoid insects native to Arcadia, and you also find them a lot on Mechanus. They're called centaur ants because they look like upright walking ants that are about 5 feet tall. Got 6 limbs, 2 of which are used as arms and can manipulate tools or weapons. And like real ants, they have a structured hierarchy within their society. They're highly, highly lawful. They basically act exactly like ants do. So, yeah, while they're very lawful, they do truly have a hive mentality, and that they are loyal to the commands of their superiors, and who act independently of the queen, but the queens can give out an order which all Formians will just automatically follow. Formians can be independent enough to join an adventuring party, particularly when the queens are otherwise involved in like breeding season, or if it's a swarm activity going on. Individual Formians have been known to break off from the hive and go off and lead adventuring lives. So that's quite often where they're encountered. If they are encountered in a hive situation, you better be doing something that the hive approves of, otherwise you're going to be blocked or possibly killed and devoured pretty quickly. They are insectoid, so they're extremely efficient and kind of brutal. But much like the Borg in Star Trek, if you're not bothering them, they generally don't bother you, unless you're in a sensitive area such as a nursery or something like that where you shouldn't be, in which case their reaction to you will be instinctual and quite often lethal. Fensir are called Asgardian trolls. They frequent the first and third layers of Isgard, and despite their name, they're nothing like prime-material trolls. They wear simple clothing, they're kind of like hideously ugly giants, and they have basic human appearance, but large ears, noses, the grey-brown, earth-coloured skin, and tough and leathery. They're exactly like a cartoon version of a giant, but they're between 6 and 8 feet in height, so they're more like ogre-y, but almost cartoonish. Although the females are larger, so they can be much bigger. They generally mind their own business, keep themselves. Bariaur, which are sort of goat-like centaurs, consider them to be wise healers, so they're not actually like savage monsters like trolls are. They're a different type of creature altogether. And some have no animosity towards them whatsoever. They occasionally kidnap people and do weird rites and things like that. They're very complicated. But yeah, so that's one race that you'll see occasionally. Bariaur are a Ysgardian race that travels widely, and they actually consider it one of their duties to seek down and contain and hunt evil. So they'll chase it through planar portals if they have to. So you'll quite often encounter Bariaur pretty much anywhere. And I quite like them as a race to portray as interplanar travelers, storytellers, bards, adventurers, and kind of rogues, really. So that's a few of them. There's also bladelings and genasi and other types of planar creatures, which you can have fun with. But that's a basic overview of a few of the old school planescape planar races, and many of them are player characterable. You can run them as player characters as well. So yeah, if you're ever in the mood to have a planar adventure, run some of those past your DM and see what they say. Or if you're running it yourself, have fun with them. Right, that's it for me. Please give me some suggestions for the next thing. Otherwise, I might do another urban environment in the next video. Sorry, I'm sort of lagging behind on my Patreon videos, but I try my best. And I do very much value your input and your very generous donation. Thank you very much. I'll catch you guys later.
So let me be your source of inspiration. Bass rumble through your spine, feel that vibration. This is the solution to the problems that you're facing. And this could be your ride to any given destination. Giving you all of my energy, ain't got no time to think about an enemy. Let go to anyone who's been a friend of me. Get down with your boy.